I ripped my headphones off so hard the left ear cup snapped, smacked my cheek, and hung there by a wire like a dead fish eye. And I still heard the song. Not heard like memory, either. I mean, it kept going inside my skull like somebody had swapped my bones for cheap speakers. I stood in the lab doorway with the busted headset dangling from my fist, staring at the waveforms scrolling across my monitor, calm, straight, patient, while my stomach tried to crawl up into my throat and get the hell out. On screen, it looked like whale audio. Sweeps, clicks, those long down and up moans that get stitched into every ocean documentary montage. In my head, it felt like instructions. I didn't come into marine bio to be the haunted one. I came in because I like boring truth. Salinity and turbidity. Oxygen levels. Depth profiles. Things you can measure and fight about in grants like grown adults pretending they don't want to bite each other. I was the boring person on the team. The one who cleaned hydrophone data, filtered out boat noise, flagged out harmonics, and stayed late because it was easier than going home to my shitty apartment where the pipes knocked like someone was tapping for help inside the walls. That week, the grant panic was worse than usual. Our PI, Dr. Klein, had donors coming. Big donors. The kind that walk through your lab like it's an aquarium exhibit and expect you to make the fish do tricks. Klein kept saying deliverables like it was a prayer. He'd hover behind me with a pen and tap it on my desk. Talp, talp, talp. Always the same tempo. Always right when my scripts lagged or a plot froze. Talp, talp, talp. Like he was keeping time. He'd gotten us access to a new hydrophone string offshore, deeper than anything we normally touched. The company that owned it didn't want press. They called it environmental monitoring, like you just happened to install a sensitive listening array next to an active seabed drilling corridor out of love for dolphins. Everybody knew where it was. The edge of a trench nobody fished because nets don't come back from there. A chunk of water the charts called deep, the way people call a gun loaded, casually like it won't change your life. The first night the new feed came in, I thought the timestamps were wrong. The songs didn't match seasonal patterns. Wrong cadence, wrong spacing. Too many harmonics stacked in places humpbacks don't stack them. Like something tried to imitate a whale with bad software and then got bored halfway through. I ran my usual filters. Engine noise out. Rain clicks out. Stationary electrical interference out. I stacked channels, compared the timing between them, plotted frequency bands until my eyes felt gritty. The cleanest part of the signal wasn't the whales. It was something riding under them. A low carrier tone, steady as a held breath, threaded through every moan like a wire running through meat. Not loud, not obvious. But once you noticed it, everything else started sounding wrong, like the ocean was speaking over a phone line and the line itself had a voice. It made the air in the lab feel tight, like the room had pressure, like I needed to swallow to equalize, the way you do on a descent, and no matter how I tried, my ears wouldn't pop. I brought it to Klein because that's what you do when you find something that could either get you published or get you fired. He didn't even look at my plots at first. He looked at the donor schedule on his phone, then at my face like my face was the problem. "Are you sure it's not instrumentation?" he said. "It's not," I said. I hated how small my voice sounded in the lab. Everything in there was water-themed and sterile. Posters of coral reefs, jars of samples, a little model sub on someone's shelf, and still the place always smelled faintly of brine and electronics, like a bait shop that sold laptops. He finally leaned in, squinted at the screen, and made the same noise he made when he was trying not to show he was interested. Then he did the thing I hated most. He smiled like I'd finally produced something useful. "Well," he said, "that's interesting." He put a hand on the back of my chair like he owned it. Like he owned me, and added, "Don't call it anything. Interesting is safe. That's how you get punished in academia. Not with chains, with caution, with the word safe used like a muzzle." So I kept working. Alone, because Klein didn't want to bias interpretation in front of the donors, because he didn't want the grad students wasting time on spooky shit, because he wanted to be the one to frame it when the time came. At 2:12 a.m., the song changed. The whale melody shifted into a phrase that repeated 3 times, and the carrier tone underneath it stepped up in frequency like a staircase. My fingers froze over the keyboard. That prickly, crawling feeling ran over my arms like cold water under a wetsuit. I checked the other channels. Same thing. Multiple animals, miles apart, syncing on the same phrase like a choir. Like something had snapped them into alignment. Like somebody had dropped a conductor's baton into the ocean. Whales don't do that. Not like that. I ran the sequence through a pattern matcher. It flagged nothing. No known calls. No similarity to documented songs in our archive. Just a clean, unknown, like the software had given up. So I did the stupid thing. I played it again. Not because I'm brave. Because I'm stubborn. Because my brain hates unanswered questions more than it hates fear. That's when the instructions hit me. Not words. Not English. More like a shape my mind wanted to complete. The way you see a half-drawn circle and your hand itches to finish it. The way a rhythm makes your foot tap before you've decided you're listening. My tongue pressed to the roof of my mouth, and I caught myself humming along, quiet and automatic, like my throat already knew where the note was supposed to sit. I stopped so hard it felt like slamming on brakes. My chair rolled back and bumped the cabinet. The sound of it, plastic while on tile, sounded too loud. My heart was hammering. My mouth tasted like pennies. I went to the bathroom and leaned over the sink, staring at my own face under fluorescent light that made everybody look sick. My pupils weren't blown. My eyes weren't red. No blood. No foam. Just me, sweating like I'd run. I rinsed my face with cold water until my skin hurt. Then I heard it again, faint through the plumbing. Not through speakers. Through pipes. A low, steady hum underneath the building's water system, riding the gurgle of the drain and the breathy hiss of the radiator. Like the lab wasn't just receiving the sound. Like it had become part of the instrument. I turned off the faucet. The hum didn't stop. I stood there with wet hands and felt my stomach drop, because the dumbest part of my brain did this instant math. If it's in the pipes, it's in the water. If it's in the water, then it's not just a signal. It's something physical enough to travel. I went back to my desk and pulled the hydrophone coordinates. I shouldn't have had them. They were in a locked folder. Klein's password was taped under his keyboard because the man believed in efficiency the way some people believe in ghosts, only when it benefits them. I found a sticky note, lifted it, typed the password, and felt dirty as soon as the folder opened. A map loaded with dots offshore. I plotted timestamps against location and felt my throat tighten harder. The whales weren't singing randomly. Their synced phrases lined up with a set of points. A curve, not a migration route. A boundary. The phrase repeated when whales crossed it, like a warning line painted on the ocean. I sat there in the glow of the monitor with my hands hovering uselessly over the keyboard, and my apartment's pipe-tapping memory came back, and I thought, stupidly, of old sailor stories about knocking on hulls and hearing knocks back from the deep. Not fish, not wrecked debris, something that knew you were there and wanted you to know it knew. The next morning, Klein showed up late with donut grease on his fingers and that bright, "I'm not stressed" smile he wore when he was stress eating. I shoved a printout at him before he could say anything about donors. He skimmed it and whistled through his teeth, quick and satisfied. Then, "We'll do a boat run." I actually laughed. It came out ugly. "No," I said. "You'll send a drone or you'll drop a remote unit. We don't need." He cut me off. He loved cutting people off. It was his favorite hobby besides hearing his own voice. "We need audio ground truth," he said. "We need footage. We need something a donor can understand." Donor. Always donor. Like donors were the tide, and everything else had to move around them. "It's stressing the animals," I said. "You can hear it. The harmonics. They're off. Something's riding under them that isn't them." Klein's smile thinned. That little skin-tightening thing happened at the corner of his eyes when he got annoyed. "You're tired," he said. That was it. That's all it took. He decided I was a malfunctioning tool. He didn't argue my points. He didn't ask how I'd gotten the coordinates. He didn't do the scientist thing. He did the boss thing. "We leave tomorrow," he said. I went home and tried to sleep, and of course I couldn't. Every time the building pipes shifted and knocked, my throat twitched like it wanted to answer. I pressed my tongue hard to the roof of my mouth to stop myself from humming in the dark like an idiot. When I did fall asleep, I dreamed I was underwater in a flooded hallway, and the lights were out, and the only thing guiding me was that low carrier tone, steady and patient, leading me somewhere I didn't want to go. 2 days later, we were on the research boat with a grad crew that looked like a lineup of people being punished. The deck stank of bait, sunscreen, diesel, and old fish slime baked into grooves. The sea was flat enough to look fake, like someone had painted it with a glossy brush. We weren't on some sleek documentary vessel. We were on a working boat with a patch hull and a cabin that creaked when it rolled, even in small swell. The kind of boat that makes you respect water because you can feel the ocean's weight through the floor. Klein stood by the rail with his coffee like a captain in a movie. He brought a film guy, not even a student. Some freelance asshole with a stabilizer rig and a tight haircut who kept calling everything content, like that word could justify being in the way. He introduced himself like I should be grateful. I didn't give him my name. I didn't want him having it in his mouth. I checked our hydrophone drop, checked the winch, checked the emergency kit, checked the sat phone, checked the O2 bottle for the divers, even though we weren't supposed to be diving. I moved fast because my hands needed something to do besides shake. One of the grad students, Talia, caught me double-checking the same strap twice. "You good?" she asked. "Yeah," I lied. She nodded, but the look on her face said she didn't buy it. She was smart. Too smart to be on this boat for donor theater. Klein called her good optics because she photographed well on lab brochures. That's the kind of man he was. The captain, older guy, leathery skin, eyes like he'd swallowed a lot of weather, kept giving Klein short answers. "Speed?" Klein asked. "Fast enough," the captain said. "How close are we going to the coordinates?" "Close enough to drop your toys and leave." Klein laughed like it was a joke. The captain didn't. We reached the first coordinate around noon. The sun was bright, mean, reflecting off the water hard enough to make my eyes ache. The sonar showed nothing interesting. Normal bottom, silt and scattered rock, a couple of faint ridges. Klein pretended to be disappointed for the camera. "See," he said loud enough for everyone. "It's just a phenomenon. Nature. Beautiful." He had the film guy circling him, camera floating on that stupid gimbal like a hovering insect. Then the whale's song rolled under us. Not the soft, distant kind you hear on recordings. This was loud enough to make the hull buzz. A vibration through metal like you were touching a running generator. I felt it in my molars. The deckhands stopped moving. One of them glanced toward the cabin like he expected something to fall. A humpback surfaced off our port side, close enough I could see the ridges on its head and the barnacles clustered along its jaw. It breathed once, hard, and the exhale came out pink. Not bright blood. A thin blush in the spray, like a nosebleed, like a bruise being squeezed. The whale didn't breach, didn't slap its tail. It just floated, half-rolled, visible above the surface. The eye tracked the boat. It didn't look majestic. It looked used, like an animal that had been handled too many times. Klein leaned forward like a kid at an aquarium. The film guy got right to the edge, stabilizer rig stretched out over open water. He muttered, "Holy shit," like he'd discovered this whale personally instead of showing up uninvited. Back from the rail, the captain barked. Film guy ignored him. Klein ignored him. Of course. The whale opened its mouth. Up close, whale mouths are wrong. Baleen hanging like a curtain of rotten fingernails. Pink tissue with scars. A dark throat that looks too big to be real. The smell hit us, warm fish rot mixed with salt and something metallic like old coins. This mouth had something else. Metal, not hooks, not tags. A lattice embedded along the gum line, dull gray, fused into flesh. It didn't shine like human gear. It looked grown, like someone had convinced metal to behave like bone. My breath caught. My skin went cold under the sun. The whale moaned. and the carrier tone underneath it punched through the air like pressure. I watched 3 deckhands wince at the same time, hand going to their jaws, like they'd all gotten hit with the same invisible punch. One guy dropped his wrench. It clanged on the deck and rolled until it hit a boot. Nobody picked it up. The sound didn't just travel, it pushed. A ripple ran across the ocean surface in a straight line away from the whale. Not matching wind, not matching swell. Like a fast-moving seam in the water, like someone had drawn a line and then dragged a finger along it. It slapped the hull and rattled the instruments in the cabin. Klein shouted at the captain, some demand to hold position, and the captain snapped back. "Don't you tell me to hold shit," he barked. "I'm not dying for your fucking slideshow." I loved him in that moment. The captain was the only one on that boat who understood the sea doesn't care about your career. The whale sang again. The carrier tone stepped upward. Just one clean step. A higher note that made my vision feel like it vibrated. The film guy's posture changed. It was subtle. He lowered his camera a few inches like he forgot why he was holding it. His shoulders dropped. His face went slack. He leaned closer to the railing, calm as a man stepping toward a window. I grabbed the back of his jacket and yanked him away. He spun on me with dead calm, eyes unfocused, and tried to step back toward the edge. No anger. No, what the fuck? Just a sleepwalker with a destination. "Get off the rail," I hissed. He didn't even look at me. He looked past me, toward the whale, like it was calling him by name. I shoved him hard. He hit the deck shoulder first and barked a laugh, just one sharp little sound like it felt good. Then he started humming. Not the whale melody. The carrier tone. A low, steady hum that didn't sound like a human throat should be able to make. It sat too clean in the air, too stable like a machine. The whale rolled farther, exposing more of its flank. That's when I saw the scars. Parallel cuts in the skin, long and clean, healed over in rows like someone had harvested strips and let it regrow. Some scars looked fresh, pink and angry. Some had clusters of barnacles sitting in them like scabs. The animal had been worked. Klein finally stopped smiling. His face tightened. He swallowed like he just realized the donor wasn't the biggest predator in the room. He lifted his phone, thumb hovering over the camera icon. I slapped it out of his hand before my brain caught up. His coffee flew. The cup hit the deck and burst. Brown liquid ran toward the scupper like spilled blood in sunlight. Klein grabbed my shoulder, nails digging through my jacket. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he snapped, eyes sharp, voice low like a threat. "Put your fucking phone away," I said. "You don't touch me," he hissed. "Then stop treating this like a photo op." I shot back. Talia moved between us quick, palms out. "Both of you," she started. The ocean stole a moment. A second whale surfaced starboard, then a third, then another, farther back. They formed a loose arc around us. Not attacking, not curious, holding. Their songs overlapped. The carrier tone aligned. The hull buzzed harder. The deck plates vibrated under my boots. A cup inside the cabin walked itself off a counter and shattered. I heard the glass even over the engine. The captain yelled for engines. The boat tried to move. It felt like dragging through glue. Not current, not kelp, something else. Like the water itself had thickened, grabbed the hull with slow hands. Under the surface, dark shapes slid by, too deep to see clearly. Long structured, not fish, not whales, more like shadows with edges. Like geometry underwater. Klein screamed to the captain again. "Go, go, you have to." The captain screamed back, face purple. "I am going." The film guy kept humming on the deck, smiling at nothing, saliva shining at the corner of his mouth like he'd been drugged. I crawled to him, grabbed his chin to force his face toward me. His throat muscles looked wrong, tight, rigid, like the humming had locked them in place. His eyes watered. A thin line of blood leaked from one nostril and dotted onto the deck in red beads that rolled with the boat's vibration. "Stop," I said. He didn't blink. I slapped him, hard enough to sting my palm through my glove. He blinked once, slow, like coming up from anesthesia. And he tried to bite me. Not an angry bite, a reflex bite, like an animal snapping at a hook. I jerked back and his teeth scraped my glove. He kept humming even while his jaw worked, chewing air like he was trying to catch the note between his teeth. The whale sang another phrase. The carrier tone dropped suddenly, just one step, and the whole boat lurched forward like something let go. We surged out of the ark. The captain gunned it, hands tight on the wheel, eyes fixed forward like he didn't want to see what was behind us. Behind us, the whales didn't chase. They held their positions, watched us leave, and kept singing, steady, unhurried, like they'd delivered the message and didn't care whether we listened. The ride back wasn't clean. The film guy wouldn't stop humming, even when the engines roared, even when waves slapped the hull and sprayed salt on our faces. He kept that low tone under his breath like a second heartbeat. His lips trembled with it. His neck muscles bulged. He pissed himself and didn't react. Klein kept trying to talk over it like he could bully physics. It's shock, he said. It's stress. We need to record everything. Do we get the lattice on camera? Tell me we got it. The captain turned just enough to show Klein his profile and said, loud and flat, "Go fuck yourself." Nobody told him not to. Back at the dock, paramedics were waiting because somebody had finally used the radio for something useful. They dragged the film guy off the boat. He fought them with weird, slow strength, like his body was running on a different instruction set now. He didn't swing wild. He didn't scream. He just kept trying to lean toward the water, humming, head tilted like he was listening for something beneath the dock planks. One medic tried to strap his arms down. The film guy bucked, slammed his forehead against the gurney rail, not hard enough to knock himself out, just hard enough to leave a smear of blood and keep humming through the pain. The sound didn't break. It didn't wobble. It stayed perfect. Klein shoved past me on the dock, trying to take control like a man drowning in his own ego. "I'm with the university," he told the paramedics. "This is part of..." One of them cut him off. "Back up." Klein looked at me like he expected me to fix it, like I was his assistant, not a person. I didn't move. At the hospital, they sedated the film guy. His throat kept humming anyway. They rolled him through double doors while the sound followed like a leash, vibrating against the tile walls. People in the waiting area looked up, confused, faces tightening like they felt it in their teeth. A nurse asked what he'd taken. "Nothing," I said. She didn't believe me. They scoped his airway. They said words like spasm and neurological and unknown exposure. They looked at us like we were idiots who'd done something stupid on purpose. Klein tried to stay in charge. He tried to spin it. "Acoustic trauma," he told the doctor. "Low-frequency exposure can cause." The doctor stared at him like he was talking about sunburn while someone's house was on fire. "Why is he humming while sedated?" she asked. Klein opened his mouth, ready to answer, then stopped because he didn't have one. None of us did. When they finally made us leave, it was after dark. The air outside the hospital tasted like rain and exhaust. I could hear the harbor from the parking lot. Waves slapping against pilings, distant foghorn, that slow, wet sound of water always moving even when you're trying to pretend it's not there. Klein lit into me the second we were alone. "This is on you," he said. I laughed again, because what else do you do when someone tries to hand you their guilt like a bag of garbage? "On me," I said. "You dragged us out there for donor footage." "Don't you dare," he snapped. "I told you not to go," I said. "I told you something was wrong." He stepped closer, finger pointed like a weapon. "You don't understand what's at stake," he hissed. I stepped closer too. I was shaking, but I was done being polite. "What's at stake?" I said. "Your funding? Your paper?" Because we just watched whales bleed pink spray and sing like they were being played like instruments. Klein's face twitched. "You're emotional," he said, like that was the worst insult he could think of. "Yeah," I said. "I'm emotional." Because that guy's in there chewing his own mouth into ribbons and humming like a fucking engine. Klein didn't answer. He just turned and walked away like my words were ocean spray. Annoying, inevitable, not worth stopping for. I didn't go home. I went back to the lab. I told myself I needed to see the data again, that if I could turn it into something logical, something with a label, I wouldn't break. The building was mostly dark. The hallway smelled like damp carpet and old coffee. The lab's air was cold enough to make my skin tighten. The hum of the ventilation felt louder at night, like the building breathed harder when nobody watched. I sat at my workstation and pulled up the new hydrophone feed. The whales were still singing. The carrier tone was stronger now. The steps were cleaner, less like an accident and more like a deliberate ladder. I overlaid the latest timestamps on the map. The boundary curve had shifted. Not drift, not error. A measurable movement closer to shore, like a fence closing. Like something offshore was tightening a noose with patient hands. My mouth went dry. I pulled up older data sets and compared. Months back, the curve was far out. Then it crept in, slow enough you could miss it if you weren't looking for it. Tonight, it had jumped. I thought about that metal lattice in the whale's mouth. The way it looked fused, grown, accepted by tissue that should have rejected it. I thought about the scars. I stopped pretending this was natural. Somebody down there was using whales as transmitters, as buoys, as talking mouths that could travel where machines couldn't. A deep-sea civilization doesn't need a radio tower if it can train a living one. The thought hit me so hard I had to put my hands flat on the desk to steady myself. I typed because typing is what I do when I'm scared. I typed like if I could name it, I could control it. Do not cross. Do not look. Do not listen. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't a prophecy. It was a sign on a locked hatch. I stared at the words until my eyes burned. Then, because the universe apparently wanted to make sure I didn't have any comforting doubts left, I heard it again. Not from the speakers, from the sink. A faint, low vibration under the gurgle of the trap. A tone riding the pipes like something had found a new route into the building. I turned my chair slowly and looked at the lab's stainless steel basin like I expected an eye to open in the drain. The carrier tone climbed one step. My jaw ached. My tongue pressed to the roof of my mouth. And for half a second, just half a second, I felt my throat try to answer back, like a reflex, like my body had been listening longer than my brain had. Somewhere down the hall, a door clicked. Footsteps. Slow, unhurried, coming toward the lab. Footsteps in that building were never normal at night. Daytime, you heard a million soft sounds, grad students in sandals, rolling carts, doors bumping, people laughing too loud because they were trying to look like they weren't drowning in work. At midnight, the hallways were a different ecosystem. Every sound carried. Every click and scuff felt like it belonged to someone who shouldn't be there. The footsteps came slow. No hurry, no keys jingling, just wet timing, like a drip that learned to walk. I killed the lab lights and sat still in the glow of my monitor, the hydrophone waveform crawling forward like it didn't give a shit about my heart trying to claw out of my ribs. The carrier tone climbed another step in the pipes. My jaw twinged, a deep ache right under the ear like the start of an ear infection. I swallowed. Didn't help. It never helped. It was like trying to equalize against pressure that wasn't air. The door handle moved. Not a normal twist. More like someone testing it. Slow pressure, then release. I held my breath without meaning to. The inside of my mouth tasted metallic like I'd bit my tongue. The handle moved again. Then the door opened. Klein stepped in, and for half a second the relief made me lightheaded, because at least it wasn't some stranger. Then the anger kicked up, hot and stupid. He looked wrecked. Hair sticking up, shirt collar half tucked, eyes red like he'd been crying or staring at a screen for too long. He didn't look at the lab like it was his kingdom. He looked at it like it was a place where something waited. He shut the door behind him too carefully. "You're still here," he said. "That's what happens when you can't sleep," I said, and my voice sounded too loud in the dark. He stared at my screen, not at me. His eyes tracked the waveform like he recognized it the way you recognize a face in a crowd. "What did you do?" he asked. I laughed under my breath. "Me? You mean besides keeping your stupid project from killing people?" His jaw ticked. He stepped closer, hands tight at his sides like he didn't trust them. The company called, he said. Of course they did. The ocean doesn't call you. The ocean sends people. What company? I asked, even though I knew. He swallowed hard. The one that owns the string. They have a name, I said. He flinched like I'd slapped him. They're their partners. They want the raw data. All of it. And if you don't, I asked. His eyes flicked to my face now, quick and guilty. They offered funding support, he said. I stared at him. They offered a bribe. He snapped. They offered continuity. They offered to keep the lab open. They offered to keep your ass comfortable. I cut in. My voice got sharp. I could feel it. I didn't care. Did they offer to keep whales from bleeding through their blowholes? Klein's mouth opened, then closed. He couldn't argue that one because he'd seen it too, and it didn't fit in a budget spreadsheet. They said we're not the first group, he muttered, and that caught me. What? I said. His eyes shifted away like he regretted speaking. They said other teams have had incidents. They said it's manageable if you follow procedure. Procedure, I said, and the word tasted like salt and rot. What procedure, Klein? Don't listen to the ocean? Don't piss off the whales. He rubbed his face with both hands like he was trying to wipe something off. They told me not to tell anyone, he said. They told me to keep you quiet. I leaned back in my chair, slow, because my legs felt like they might jump. So you came here to threaten me? I came here to fix this, he snapped, and for a second the old Klein came back. Command voice, control freak, the guy who thought every problem was a person he could push. Then the carrier tone in the pipes stepped up again, and his expression changed. It went thin, like his face was a sheet stretched over something moving. He pressed his tongue against his teeth. I saw it, that little involuntary shift, like his mouth was trying to find note. My stomach dropped. You hear it, I said. He glared at me. No. I reached for the speakers with shaking fingers and hit play at low volume. The whale phrase rolled into the room, and under it that steady carrier tone slid through the air like a hand along skin. Klein flinched like it touched a bruise. His jaw clenched. He tried to swallow and failed once. Then it went down, visible in his throat like something heavy dropping into place. His eyes went glassy for half a second. Then his mouth opened and he exhaled the tone back into the room. A perfect match. Not humming like a drunk at a bar. Not off-key. Not trembling. Perfect. My chair scraped back on tile. I stood up so fast my knees hit the underside of the desk. Klein's eyes snapped back like he'd been yanked by a hook. His face flushed. He coughed too hard trying to cover it. The cough sounded wet. What the fuck was that? I said. He opened his mouth to talk and the tone tried to ride out again, right under his words. He clamped his lips shut so hard they went white. You answered it, I said, and my voice got low because fear makes you whisper like that helps. You answered it in the system, whatever it is, locked on. Klein's eyes went wild. No, I didn't. Don't lie to me, I snapped. I'll watch you. He grabbed the edge of the desk, knuckles white. It's a reflex. Like the film guy? I said. His face twitched. I didn't give him time to deny it. I reached under the desk and yanked the power strip. The monitors died. The speakers went silent. The carrier tone didn't. It stayed in the room, faint but present, like the building itself remembered it, like our bodies had become part of the circuitry. Klein made a horrible wet sound and stumbled toward the sink. He gagged. He spit strings of saliva that hung too long before dropping into the basin. He stared down like he expected something to crawl out of the drain and into his mouth. Jesus Christ, I whispered. He turned, eyes wet, and did the most human thing possible. He tried to make it my fault. You brought this in here, he said, voice shaking with rage and panic. You played it. You kept listening. You dragged us out there, I said, and my anger steadied me. Anger is a life raft. You wanted footage. You wanted a story for donors. He shoved past me, shoulder checking me hard enough to make me stumble into a cabinet. He yanked his phone out, hands shaking, and stormed out of the lab. I followed because I'm not brave. I'm stubborn and pissed off, and I hated him too much to let him bury this. Klein, I hissed, and my footsteps sounded too loud in the hallway. The fluorescent lights were dimmed at night, leaving long stretches of shadow between them. The building smelled damp, like the ocean had crept into the walls and settled. Klein hit the stairwell door and stopped like he'd walked into a wall. He stood there staring at the metal door, chest rising and falling fast. The humming came from behind it. Low, steady, many throats holding one note. Not from the hallway, from inside the stairwell, from the building itself, from vents and pipes in the hollow space where heat and water travel. Klein's phone screen lit up in his hand, even though he hadn't touched it. No service. Still, text appeared across it like a subtitle. Boundary moved. Then, one mouth is enough. My skin went cold in a way the building's air conditioning had nothing to do with. Klein started sobbing without making a face, just tears pouring down like his body betrayed him. It wasn't a dramatic cry. It was panic leaking out of him because the dam inside finally cracked. He turned like he was going to run back into the lab, and he slammed into someone. A man stood in the hallway, soaked, barefoot, hospital band still on his wrist. The film guy. He shouldn't have been there. He shouldn't have been walking. He shouldn't have been upright at all. His hair was plastered to his skull. His shirt, hospital gown, actually hung off one shoulder, damp and stained. His lips were shredded like he'd chewed them raw. Blood seeped from the corners of his mouth in slow, patient lines and dripped onto the tile. But the worst part was his eyes. They weren't unfocused anymore. They were steady, calm, like he'd finally arrived where he'd been trying to go. He didn't look at me. He looked at Klein. The humming behind the stairwell door aligned with the humming in his throat. I could feel it in my teeth like a tuning fork pressed to bone. Klein backed up, hands raised like he was facing a rabid dog. No, Klein whispered. No, you how? The film guy stepped forward and pressed his forehead against Klein's, gentle as a kiss. Klein froze. Then the humming stopped. For one clean second, there was silence, and I felt how loud my own breathing was, how what it sounded in the back of my throat. The film guy opened his mouth. Inside, his tongue was gone. Not cut clean, torn out. The floor of his mouth held something pale and rigid, a little lattice of dull, gray metal fused into meat like bone. He exhaled. The carrier tone came out so pure it made my vision flicker. The hallway lights stuttered like they were reacting. My stomach lurched like I'd dropped in an elevator. Klein's jaw unhinged slightly. His lips shaped the note and joined it. Two perfect tones aligned. Klein's throat skin dimpled, then split in a thin seam under his chin, like tissue giving way along a pre-cut line. A slick pale strip slid out, slow, searching, tasting the air. Not a tongue. Not exactly. More like something that wanted to be a tongue. Something that needed to feel the air the way a fish needs to feel water. I didn't stay to watch. I'm not going to pretend I tried to save him. I backed away, hands shaking, and ran. I hit the emergency stairs at the end of the hall because my brain screamed, "Keep away from that door," and I listened. The stairwell smelled like wet concrete and old mop water. As I ran, the humming followed through the walls, not loud, not distant, just present, like it was in my own body now. Down 2 flights, 3. My knees started to burn. I nearly slipped on a puddle I swear wasn't there before. I burst out into the night air behind the building, gulping cold like it was oxygen after a dive. The campus sat quiet under streetlights. The wind carried the smell of the harbor, brine, diesel, seaweed, because our whole city lived with salt in its lungs whether it admitted it or not. From somewhere far off, a foghorn moaned. And from the harbor, miles away, I heard a whale breach once. Heavy and slow, a single huge body leaving water and coming down. The slap carried through the night like a door closing. Then the sea went still. Not calm, still. Like something had put its hand flat on the surface and pressed. I stood there shaking, my hands empty, and I realized I still had Klein's voice in my head. Not his words. His tone, the way it had tried to join the carrier note. One mouth is enough. I walked all the way to the harbor without thinking. That's the stupid part. That's the part that makes me hate myself. Because if you're smart, you get away from water. You get inland. You get out of earshot. I walked toward it like my body wanted to check if the ocean was still there. The docks were mostly empty. A couple of shrimp boats bobbing. A tug idling somewhere in the dark. The water under the pier was black, thick, with oil sheen catching streetlight in trembling ribbons. As I leaned over the railing, the smell hit me hard. Rotting fish, old fuel, wet wood. And under the normal dock noises, the clink of rigging, the slap of small waves, I heard it. A low tone, the carrier note, quiet as a secret. It wasn't coming from a speaker. It was coming from the water. I backed up so fast, I bumped into a stack of crab traps. Metal clanged. Loud. Too loud. A fisherman, older guy, face like driftwood, looked up from where he was tying a rope. "What's your problem?" he barked. I swallowed. "Do you hear that?" He squinted at me. "Hear what?" The tone stepped up one level, and my jaw ached like someone twisted it. The fisherman frowned, then rubbed his own jaw like he'd suddenly gotten a toothache. "You sick?" he asked, less angry now. I didn't answer. I turned and walked away fast because I didn't want to stand there and let it tune me. I didn't want to become someone else's instrument. I quit the next day. I didn't email. I didn't explain. I shoved my stuff into a backpack, left my ID badge on the lab bench, and walked out like the building might bite me if I lingered. I expected calls, threats, anything. Instead, there was silence. The kind that feels like someone is deciding how to handle you. 2 days later, a university-wide email went out about a medical emergency involving Dr. Klein. There was a vague line about respecting privacy. There was a little sad face emoji from the department chair like that made a human. I almost laughed until I realized my throat wanted to laugh on that carrier note. I didn't go back to campus after that, not even to return keys. I dropped them in a mailbox and didn't look back. For a week, I didn't hear anything. No tone in the pipes. No humming under the wind. I started convincing myself I'd cracked. That stress had turned me into a person who heard patterns where there were none. Then one afternoon, as I was walking past the marina to catch a bus, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I should have ignored it. I answered. A woman's voice said my name like she knew how to say it. Calm. Professional. "Is this?" she started. "Who is this?" I cut in. There was a pause, like she smiled without letting it reach her voice. "I'm calling regarding your work with the offshore monitoring array," she said. "We'd like to ask a few questions." "No," I said immediately. "I don't think you understand," she said, still calm. "This is about safety." I barked a laugh. "Safety? Right. You were exposed," she said. "We've seen symptoms in other personnel. We can help you if you cooperate." My mouth went dry. "Help me how?" "By giving you guidance," she said, "and by ensuring you don't spread anything." The word spread made my skin crawl. "I'm not sick," I lied. Another pause. A subtle shift. "You went to the harbor the night of the incident," she said. My stomach dropped so hard I had to stop walking. "How the fuck do you know that?" I whispered. "We monitor patterns," she said, like it was the most normal thing. "We know where people go when the boundary shifts." "Who are you?" I said again. She didn't answer. She never answered the question. Instead, she said, "We need the data you took." "I didn't take anything," I said. Another lie. I'd copied segments to a thumb drive like a paranoid asshole because some part of me knew Klein would sell it. "We know you did," she said. "We prefer this be simple." I looked at the water beside the marina. Sunlight flickered on it like broken glass. Under the normal harbor noise, I heard the faintest hum. Not loud, not obvious, but there, my tongue pressed to the roof of my mouth. My throat tightened. "Stop listening," she said, and her voice sharpened for the first time. "Do you hear me? Stop. You're making it easier." "What is it?" I demanded. "What's down there?" Another pause. Then she said almost gently, "Not everything down there is ours." The line went dead. I stood there shaking, phone in my hand, watching the water like it might rise up and grab me by the ankles. That night, I tried to destroy the thumb drive. I threw in a pot of boiling water because my brain was stuck on water logic like an idiot. Like boiling could purify it. The drive floated, plastic warping, and for a second the bubbles looked like tiny mouths opening and closing. I fished it out with tongs and smashed it with a hammer until my downstairs neighbor banged on the ceiling. "Keep it down," he yelled. I yelled back, voice cracking. I thought that would be the end of it, but the sound doesn't live on drives. It lives in you. A week later, I woke up with blood on my pillow. Not a lot, just a smear at the corner of my mouth. My lips felt raw, like I'd been chewing them in my sleep. I ran to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes looked normal. My tongue was still there. My throat looked fine. Then I heard it. The carrier tone, faint, under the hum of my fridge, under the distant traffic, under everything. My jaw ached. I pressed my fingers under my chin and felt my throat vibrate when the note climbed one step, like my body was testing the pitch. I slammed my palm over my mouth like that would stop it. It didn't. For the next month, I tried everything. Earplugs, white noise, moving apartments, showering with music on, keeping the faucet dripping at night so the pipes weren't silent. Nothing worked because the problem wasn't sound outside. It was the way my brain had learned the shape of it. The way you can't unlearn a song once you've heard it enough times. The worst was water. Running water made it easier to hear, like the tone liked to ride it. Like it was a parasite that loved flow. If I stood near a fountain, my throat tightened. If I walked past a storm drain during rain, my jaw throbbed. I stopped drinking tap water. I bought bottled until my trash was a tower of plastic. I hated myself for it. I hated that I was turning into one of those people. But every time I swallowed, I swore I could taste metal under the mineral taste. I started taking long bus rides inland on my days off, just to sit somewhere the air was dry and the smell wasn't salt. I thought I was safe there. Then one day, in a diner 2 hours from the coast, I heard it again. Not loud, barely there, but under the clink of forks and the hiss of the coffee machine, that low, steady note pulsed. I looked around, heart hammering. Nobody else reacted, except the kid at the counter. He was maybe 9, hair wet like he'd just come in from rain, even though the day was clear. He stared at his glass of water like it was something alive. His lips moved, silent at first. Then he hummed, a clean low tone, too steady for a child. His mother slapped his shoulder. "Stop that," she snapped. "It's annoying." The kid didn't blink. He kept humming, eyes fixed on the water. I left my food untouched and walked out, hands shaking. On the bus back, I kept thinking about what the woman on the phone said. We monitor patterns. Not everything down there is ours. Other teams have had incidents. That meant this wasn't new. It wasn't just our lab. It wasn't just that hydrophone string. It was bigger, older, spread out like a net. I did the one thing I should have done earlier. I looked for Klein. Not online memorial bullshit. Not department emails. I tried to find where he went. Hospital records were locked, obviously. The university acted like he'd vanished into privacy. But people talk. A grad student I was still friends with, Jules, met me at a pier bar because he wouldn't talk on the phone. His hands shook the whole time he drank. "You're not supposed to be asking," he said. "I don't give a shit," I said. "What happened?" Jules stared at his beer like it might answer. "They said it was a stroke," he muttered. I snorted. "A stroke doesn't split your throat open." His head snapped up so fast his chair scraped. "You saw that," he whispered. My stomach twisted. "You know about it." He shook his head hard. No, I didn't see. I heard things, rumors. And then there were people. Company people," I said. He nodded once tight. "They came in the next morning," he said. 2 of them. 1 man, 1 woman. They had badges that weren't campus. They walked like they owned the building. My fingers tightened around my glass. "They went straight to Klein's office," Jules continued. "They took his laptop. They took drives. They took everything, like they'd rehearsed it. And you let them," I said, anger flaring. He looked at me like I was insane. What the fuck was I supposed to do? They had security with them. Campus security. Like the university was in on it. My throat tightened. "What about the hydrophone feed?" "Gone," he said. Access revoked. Klein's credentials wiped. Your account already deactivated. And the lab got sanitized. Sanitized? I repeated. They wiped it down like a crime scene, Jules said, voice thin. Bleach smell everywhere. They took the sink apart. They checked the pipes. The image hit me hard. Someone in gloves kneeling under our lab sink, not looking for leaks, but for residue? A signal? Something physical? Did they say why? I asked. Jules swallowed. They said there was a contamination risk. They said it was biological. My stomach rolled. And Klein? I asked, voice low. Jules hesitated, then leaned closer. They moved him, he whispered. Not to the hospital, not to rehab. They moved him to a facility. Where? I snapped. Jules shook his head. Nobody knows. They told the chair it was specialized. They told us not to contact him. And you believe them, I said, disgusted. Jules's eyes flashed. Don't do that, he hissed. Don't act like you're better. You ran. I opened my mouth to fight because my anger wanted someone to bite, but he was right. I ran. I stared at the dark water beyond the pier windows. The bar's dock lights made trembling gold lines on the surface. Under the music, under the laughter, I thought I heard the faint hum again. I felt my throat want to match it like a magnet. Jules followed my gaze. You still hear it? He asked. I didn't answer. His face tightened like he already knew. Listen, he said quickly. They asked about you. My spine went cold. When? Last week, he said. The woman came back. She asked if you'd been around, if you'd contacted anyone, if I'd spread anything. I finished. Jules's face went pale. Yeah, he whispered. That. I stood up so fast my chair banged. Jules grabbed my wrist. Don't do anything stupid, he said. What counts as stupid? I snapped. He let go like my skin burned. Going back, he said. Going to the water. Thinking you can fix it. I stared at him. You think I want to fix it? I want to understand it. Jules shook his head. Understanding is how it gets in. I left before I could say something cruel. That night, I dreamed of whales again, but this time it wasn't the open ocean. It was a flooded building, a hallway full of black water up to my chest. The ceiling lights flickered weak and greenish like an underwater station. Something knocked from the other side of the door. Soft at first, then harder, then in a pattern. Talp, talp, talp. Klein's pen. I woke up gasping, throat vibrating on a note I didn't choose. I slept with my hand over my mouth after that, like a child trying not to breathe too loud. I should have left the coast entirely. I didn't, because the more I tried to avoid water, the more my life turned into a map of it. Everything leads to it. Pipes, zen, drinks, the air itself, the salt that gets into your clothes if you live near it. And also because anger makes you stupid, and I was so angry I could taste it. So when my phone buzzed again with an unknown number a week later, I answered. This time, it wasn't a woman. It was a man. His voice had that flat military calm that makes your skin crawl because it's built to sound like nothing can surprise him. You're hearing it, he said. No hello, no name. I didn't speak. I'm not calling to threaten you, he said. I'm calling because you're on the edge of becoming a problem. Who are you? I asked, voice rough. A person cleaning up what you poked, he said. You should have stopped at interesting. Your PI didn't. My PI turned into a fucking mouth. I snapped. There was a pause. Not shock. More like he was choosing his words. Yes, he said. That can happen. My stomach dropped. Can. It's not common, he said. But it's possible. What is it? I demanded. A parasite? A signal? A thing? It's an agreement, he said. I actually laughed. It came out cracked. An agreement. Between who? Between the surface and the deep, he said. And you're standing on the boundary line like an idiot waving a flashlight. My fingers trembled around the phone. Do not call it a civilization, he added. Do not call it species. Those words make people curious. Curiosity is dangerous. You're full of shit, I said, but my voice was thin. If you know all this, why are whales bleeding and people turning into whatever the fuck that was? Another pause, longer. Because things change, he said. The boundary moved. Yeah, I said. It moved closer. It moves when it's pressured, he said. Pressured by what? I barked. Drilling? Sonar? You? Us? He didn't answer directly, which was an answer. You think we're the only ones in the water, he said. You think we're the loudest. We're not. My skin crawled. The memory of those long, dark shapes under the boat slid across my mind like a fin in deep water. What do you want? I asked. I want you to stop, he said. Stop listening. Stop going to the harbor. Stop trying to map it. And if I don't? I asked. His voice dropped slightly, not threatening, just factual. Then one mouth will be enough, he said. The line went dead. I stood there in my kitchen, staring at the sink. The faucet dripped once, then twice. Top, top, top. I turned it off hard. My hands shook so bad, I had to grip the counter. That was the moment I decided. If I was going to die, I wasn't going to die confused. I know how that sounds. Dramatic. Hero bullshit. It wasn't heroism. It was spite. I dug through my closet until I found the old waterproof case I used for field work. I found my dive light, my cheap handheld hydrophone, my battered notebook. I shouldn't have had a dive light. I wasn't a diver by specialty. I was the data person. But you spend enough time in marine work, and you end up with gear like it's normal to be prepared to go underwater at any time. I texted the only person I knew who could get me out of water without asking too many questions. My cousin Mark. Mark ran charters for tourists in summer and miscellaneous work year-round. He wasn't a criminal exactly. He was just a guy who knew the ocean paid better when you didn't ask what you were transporting. He called me immediately. What the hell do you need a boat for? He demanded. I need to go offshore, I said. It's December, he snapped. The water will eat you alive. I'm not diving, I lied. Mark made this sound like he was chewing on an argument. You sound weird, he said. I'm fine, I lied again. He sighed hard. Where? I gave him coordinates. Not the exact hydrophone string. I wasn't that stupid, but near the curve, near the boundary line the whales had traced. There was a long silence. Why do you have those? Mark finally asked, voice low. Just can you take me? I said, no, he said immediately. I closed my eyes. Mark, no, he repeated harder. I don't take people to weird coordinates at night. I've got rules. That word hit me like a punch. Rules. I swallowed. What rules? Mark's breath came through the phone, heavy. No questions, he said. No night runs past the buoys. No getting close to the rigs. No in places where the water sounds wrong. My stomach tightened. You've heard it. Everybody who works out there has heard something, he snapped. And everybody who's smart keeps moving. I'll pay, I said. I don't want your money, he said. I want you alive. That almost broke me because it was the first time anyone said it like they meant it. Mark, I said, voice shaking. I'm already not alive the way I used to be. Silence again. Then quietly, you're hearing it, he said. I didn't answer. He swore under his breath. Meet me at Pier 9, he said. 2 a.m. And if you try to get me killed, I'll haunt you myself. I almost laughed. It would have come out like a sob. 2 a.m. at Pier 9 was cold in a way that made my bones ache. The wind off the water cut through my jacket. The harbor was dark, except for orange sodium lights and the occasional white beam from a security camera panning slow, like a searching eye. Mark's boat wasn't big. A sturdy little work vessel with an enclosed cabin, scuffed hull, and the smell of old fish that never leaves no matter how much you scrub. The deck was wet. It hadn't rained. That should have been my first sign to turn around. Mark met me at the gangway, face tense. You brought gear, he said, accusing. Just in case, I said. He grabbed my shoulder. No diving, he said. No leaning over the rail like a moron. No listening de vices. I held up my hands. Fine. He stared at me like he didn't trust any word I said, which, fair. You're shaking, he said. It's cold, I lied. Mark spat into the water. Water's always cold, he muttered, like it was a lesson. We pushed off. As the boat moved out of the harbor, the city lights fell behind us and the world turned into dark water and darker sky. The engine's low thrum should have been comforting. Familiar. Instead, I kept hearing that carrier tone under it, like the engine was humming in harmony with something else. Mark watched me through the cabin window. "You okay?" he asked again, not softer. "Just go," I said. He cursed. "You always were like this. Head first in his shit. You ever think maybe you got that from Mom?" "Don't," I snapped. He glanced away, jaw tight. "Fine. Don't." The ocean outside the harbor was rougher. Small swells slapped the hull. Spray hit the windows in cold bursts. Inside the cabin, it smelled like diesel and wet rope. The boat creaked with each roll like it was complaining. We passed the last set of buoys and Mark slowed. "I'm not going much farther," he said. "We're not there," I said. "I know where you're taking me," he snapped. "I've been out here. I've seen the rigs. I've seen the lights at night. I've heard the weird shit. Then you know why I need to go," I said. Mark barked, a humorless laugh. "You need to go because you can't leave it alone." I didn't argue because he was right. As we got farther from shore, the water changed. I don't know how to explain that without sounding insane. It wasn't just darker. It wasn't just deeper. The surface texture felt wrong, like oil even though it wasn't oil. The swells moved like they were being pushed from underneath, not by wind. Mark noticed too. His shoulders hunched. He kept checking his compass like it might lie. Then we heard the first wail, a distant blow, a long exhale. Then the song rose under us, faint at first, then stronger, and I felt my teeth buzz. Mark's hands tightened on the wheel. "Don't," he muttered, like he was talking to the water. "What?" I asked. "Don't answer it," he said, eyes fixed ahead. My throat tightened. The carrier tone stepped up. Mark flinched, his jaw clenched. I watched him fight the reflex to hum. His lips pressed together so hard they went pale. I reached into my bag anyway. Mark saw the motion and snapped. What did I say? "I'm not diving," I said, and pulled out the cheap handheld hydrophone. He lunged, grabbed my wrist. "No," he growled. "No listening de voces. It's already in my head." I snapped back, yanking my arm free. "I need to record it. I need proof." "You need a therapist," he shot back. "Fuck you," I said, voice shaking. Mark slammed his fist on the dash. "You think I'm joking? You think I'm being dramatic? I had a guy on my boat last year. Good worker, solid, not weird, start humming on a night run. He wouldn't stop. He tried to jump in. You know what the water looks like at night when it opens around someone." My skin went cold. "He drowned?" I whispered. Mark's eyes flicked to me, raw. "No," he said. "He didn't get to drown. Something yanked him under like he was a rope end. He was gone so fast, there wasn't even a splash big enough to feel real." My mouth went dry. "You didn't tell anyone," I said. "I did," Mark snapped. "You know what they said? Coast Guard said no body, no incident. Insurance said no body, no payout. Port Authority said no body, no paperwork. Everybody loves no body." My fingers tightened on the hydrophone. "Put it away," Mark said, voice lower now. "If you record it, if you keep it, they'll come. They always come." "Who?" I demanded. Mark shook his head hard. "People. Guys with clean boots who don't smell like the sea. Guys who talk like they've never been scared." My stomach twisted because it matched what Jules said. The badges, the bleach, the pipes. We drifted, engine idling low, whale songs sliding under the hull. Then something knocked. Not on the cabin wall, not on the engine, on the hull. A soft thunk, like someone outside tapped metal with knuckles. Mark went rigid. I froze. Another knock. Then 3 in a row. Talp, talp, talp. The same tempo as Klein's pen. My scalp prickled. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. Mark whispered, "No," like a prayer. The whale's song shifted. The carrier tone climbed. My vision shimmered. Mark's mouth opened slightly, and I saw the fight in him. Saw his lips tremble like they wanted to hum. I grabbed his jaw hard, thumb pressing under his chin. "Don't," I hissed. Mark's eyes flashed with anger, but he didn't push me off. He needed the anchor as much as I did. The knocking came again, louder. Something scraped along the hull, slow, like a fingernail. Under the water, a dark shape moved. Not a whale. Too long, too straight. It passed under us, and the boat tilted slightly as if the water itself shifted to make room. Mark swore, voice shaking now. "We're leaving." "Wait," I said, and I hated myself for it. Mark glared. "No, I need one sample," I said, and my voice sounded like a stranger. "One clean sample." "You already have it," Mark snapped. "In your head." I yanked my hand off his jaw and jammed the hydrophone over the side before he could stop me. Cold spray hit my sleeve. The cable hissed through my fingers. The moment the sensor touched water, the sound hit me like a punch. Not just the whales. The carrier tone, clean and heavy, and under it something else, like a second structure, a rhythm, a pattern that wasn't animal at all. My throat spasmed. My tongue pressed to the roof of my mouth, so hard it hurt. Mark screamed, "Pull it up." I couldn't. My hands locked. The sound of my ears wasn't just sound. It was a shape that wanted to complete itself in me. Like my body was a missing piece in a circuit. My mouth opened. A low hum started to slip out. Mark slapped me across the face hard. Pain snapped me back like a line going taut. I gasped. Salt air burned my throat. I yanked the hydrophone up with shaking hands, reeling cable fast like I was pulling up a snake. The moment it left the water, the whales went silent. Not faded, stopped. The ocean felt attentive. Mark gunned the engine. The boat lurched forward, cutting through swells. Behind us, the surface rippled in a straight line, like that seam I'd seen near the whales. Like the boundary had noticed us. I looked at my recorder screen. The waveform wasn't whale-like anymore. It was too clean, too consistent. It looked like a machine's signal pretending to be organic. Mark's voice was raw. "Delete it." "What?" I said, still shaking. "Delete it," he snapped. "Right now." "No," I said. Mark's face twisted. "You're going to get me killed." "I need it," I said. "I need." Mark slammed the wheel hard enough to jolt us. "You want to die? Die alone," he snarled. "Don't bring my boat into it." I stared at him, heart hammering. Then I did the stupidest thing possible. I hit play. The sound filled the cabin, quiet but present. Whale phrase. Carrier tone. That staircase step. Mark flinched like he'd been punched. His jaw clenched. His eyes went glassy for half a second, and then his mouth opened and he exhaled the tone back. Perfect. I slapped the recorder off. Silence again, but not really. The tone stayed in the air, faint, like it had soaked into the cabin walls. Mark grabbed his own throat, like he was trying to hold something in. "You bitch," he whispered, and his voice cracked because it wasn't just anger. It was fear. "You did that on purpose." "No," I said, horrified. "No, I didn't. I didn't." He shook his head, tears in his eyes now, furious at them. "You don't get it," he said. "If it hears you answer, it knows your mouth." I felt my skin go cold. "It hears through us." Mark laughed, a broken sound. "What do you think the whales are?" "Their mouths. Big ones." The boat rocked. Something hit the hull again, harder. Thunk. Mark yelped and almost lost the wheel. I scrambled to the window. Out in the black water beside us, something pale flashed onto the surface. Not bioluminescence. Not fish. Like skin. Like something smooth and wrong catching our cabin light for half a second. Then it was gone. The knocking came again. 3 taps. Talp, talp, talp. I shoved my fingers against my lips like I could physically stop my throat from becoming useful. Mark's voice shook. "We're going back. We're going back now." The engine screamed. The boat surged, and for a second the water felt thick again, like it didn't want to let us go. Then, just like with Klein's research boat, the pressure released, and we shot forward. Behind us, the seam in the water held steady, moving with us parallel like we were being escorted. Not attacked. Held. The whale's song returned, distant now, but still aligned. Mark was shaking so hard the wheel rattled. "Don't you ever call me again," he said, voice hoarse. "If you show up on my dock, I'll call the cops myself." "Mark," I started. He snapped, "No, you're not bringing this into my life." I wanted to fight him. I wanted to tell him it was already in his life, that he'd already answered the tone once, that his mouth was already enough. But I couldn't say it because saying it felt like making it true. When we hit the harbor, The lights looked unreal, too bright, too human. The smell of diesel and fish felt like a blanket over terror. Mark didn't even tie us up properly. He shoved me toward the dock like he wanted me off his boat, like a curse. I stumbled onto the pier and nearly fell because my legs felt underwater. "Delete it," he said again. I shook my head, still clutching the recorder. Mark's eyes went flat. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a flare gun, and pointed it at my hands. "Delete it," he repeated, calm now, in the scariest way. I stared at him. "You're going to shoot me?" "I'm going to shoot that," he said, and his voice didn't wobble. "And if your hand's around it, that's your problem." My throat tightened so hard it hurt. I hit delete. The recorder beeped. The file vanished. Mark lowered the flare gun like he'd just set down a heavy weight. "Go," he said. I backed away from him, eyes on the flare gun, then turned and walked fast into the night. I didn't go home. I went to the only place I could think of that wasn't water but still had answers. The old Coast Guard station office where a friend of my dad's used to work. I didn't have a contact there anymore. I didn't have clearance. I had nothing but desperation. The building sat near the harbor, concrete and glass, smelling faintly of sea and cleaning chemicals. A flag snapped in the wind. Inside, a bored security guy looked up. "Can I help you?" he asked. "I need to report something," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "What kind of something?" I took a breath, and it tasted like salt. "Offshore incident," I said. "Unusual acoustic exposure. People affected." His expression shifted just enough, like he'd heard versions of this before. "Name?" he asked. I hesitated. He waited, pen poised. "Top, top, top." The same tempo again. I wanted to scream. "My name doesn't matter," I said. "I worked with a hydrophone array offshore. There's a boundary line in the water. It moved. People are humming. Whales." The security guy's face closed. "Ma'am," he said, voice careful. "Do you need medical attention?" "I need you to listen," I snapped. He picked up a phone. "I'm going to call someone who can help." "No," I said, and panic rose. "Don't call." He was already dialing. The carrier tone slid under the building's hum, like it had been waiting. My jaw ached. I backed away, then turned and walked out before whoever he called could arrive. Outside, I leaned against the concrete wall and pressed my forehead to it, breathing hard. I couldn't go to institutions. Institutions belong to the people with clean boots. So I did the worst thing you can do when you're scared and alone. I went online. Not public posts. Not forums. Not anything that would draw attention. I dug into academic archives. Old papers on whale songs. Deep-sea acoustic anomalies. Naval sonar incidents that were redacted for security reasons. Weird coastal town legend collections that mentioned humming fog and singing water without laughing at themselves. Most of it was junk, but there were patterns. Reports of whales showing scar lines like someone had shaved them. Incidents of divers hearing tones at depths where there shouldn't be sound propagation like that. Stories of old submariners who refused to talk about the knocking. One phrase kept popping up in different contexts. Always vague. Always like someone didn't want to name it. The fence. Not a physical fence. An acoustic boundary. A line in the water where sound changed, where people got sick, where instruments malfunctioned. I stared at that word until my eyes burned. A fence implies something is being kept in, or kept out. The woman on the phone. Not everything down there is ours. Which meant something else was down there, and whatever agreement existed was failing. I thought about drilling corridors. About deep listening posts, about how we'd been pushing into depth like it was empty space. Pressure changes things. In the ocean, pressure makes bodies adapt or rupture. And if something had lived down there long enough, it would treat our noise like an invasion. It would push back, not with weapons, with sound. Sound is how the ocean talks. Sound is how you control bodies at depth, panic, disorientation, nausea, ear pain, the slow, insane urge to surface too fast. Sound is how you make a mouth. I realized, sitting there with my laptop humming, that I'd been thinking of the horror wrong. I kept imagining something physically coming up, but it didn't need to climb out. It could spread through us like water spreads through cracks. One mouth is enough. The next morning, my sink gurgled. I hadn't run water. The pipe just made a wet, shifting noise like something moved through it. Then the hum came, stronger, right under the gurgle, like it was riding the plumbing straight into my apartment. My jaw clenched. My throat vibrated. And I heard something else. A faint tapping. Not on the wall. In the drain. Talp, talp, talp. I backed away, so fast I tripped over my own shoes. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I didn't answer. It buzzed again. 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 Then the buzzing stopped, and the screen lit up with a message, even though there was no sender ID. Boundary moved. I stared at it until my eyes watered. Another message appeared. You are near water. I swallowed. My throat hurt. Then, stop closing your mouth. My hand started shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I ran out of my apartment with my shoes half on. Outside, the air was cold and wet. Not raining, just wet. Like the city itself was sweating brine. I walked fast, then faster. Then I was basically jogging, away from the harbor, away from storm drains, away from fountains, away from anything that could carry sound. I ended up in a parking garage because it was concrete and dry and echoing, and I could hear my own breathing. I leaned against a pillar and tried to calm down. My throat still vibrated faintly, like a motor idling. From somewhere deep in the garage, I heard a hum. Not mine. Someone else. My head snapped up. A man stood at the far end of the level, near the stairs. He wore a rain jacket, even though it wasn't raining. His boots were too clean for this garage. His posture was casual in that trained way, like he could stand still for hours without getting tired. He looked at me like he'd been waiting. The hum in the background wasn't loud. It was barely there, but it aligned with the tension in my jaw like a key fitting a lock. He raised a hand, palm out like easy. Don't run, he said. I stared at him, chest heaving. Who are you? He smiled slightly. It didn't reach his eyes. You've been hard to reach, he said. I'm not hard to reach, I snapped. I'm right here. He glanced at my phone. You ignore calls. Because you people keep calling, I said. He took a slow step forward. I backed up, hitting the pillar harder. He stopped, like he respected distance, but not boundaries. We're trying to keep you alive, he said. Funny, I said, because it feels like you're trying to keep me quiet. He didn't deny it. He just tilted his head slightly, like he was listening. Are you humming? I demanded because the sound in the garage was making my teeth buzz. He blinked once. No, you are, I said. It's under your voice. He sighed, like I was being difficult. You're sensitized, he said. You'll hear it everywhere now. My throat tightened. You can't unhear it, he continued. But you can stop feeding it. What does feeding it mean? I snapped. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, carefully, answering, recording, sharing, teaching others the shape of it. The phrase, the shape of it, made my stomach twist because it matched what I'd felt in my head the first night. That itch to complete the pattern. You're not stopping it, I said. You're managing it. His eyes narrowed slightly. That's all anyone can do. That's bullshit, I said. He took another step forward, and I felt something in the air tighten. You're not in a position to debate, he said, voice still calm, but harder. Your PI is gone. Your footage is gone. Your data is gone. You can either cooperate or become a liability. My anger flared hot. You mean like Klein? You mean like the film guy? His face didn't change. Yes, he said. My stomach lurched. Where is Klein? I demanded. He hesitated just long enough to tell me it mattered. He's contained, he said. Contained. Like an infection. Like an animal. And the film guy? I asked. The man's eyes flicked away for a fraction of a second. Disposed of, he said. My skin crawled. Disposed, I repeated. He was no longer himself. The man said, like that justified anything. You understand. I didn't, but I also did, and that made me sick. You're next, I whispered. He didn't deny it. I'm here to prevent that, he said. We have protocols. Like what? I spat. Put bleach in my pipes. He actually smiled at that, like I made a joke. Dry environments, he said. Distance from open water. No recordings. No exposure to the signal. And if you feel the urge to hum. I said. He nodded once. Bite your tongue, he said. The garage hum stepped up one level. My jaw ached hard. I pressed my tongue against my teeth and tasted blood. The man's gaze sharpened. You feel it right now, he said. I didn't answer. He reached into his jacket pocket slowly, like he didn't want to spook me. My body tensed. He pulled out a small plastic case and held it up. Medication, he said. Muscle relaxant. It helps prevent the throat from locking. I stared at it. Take it, he said. Why would I take anything from you? I snapped. Because you don't have other options, he said, and his voice stayed calm like he wasn't insulting me. And because if you hum in the wrong place, you won't be the only mouth. One mouth is enough. My throat vibrated faintly like it agreed. I hated him. I hated myself. I hated the ocean. I grabbed the case out of his hand. He didn't flinch. Good, he said. Now, come with me. No, I said immediately. His smile faded. Don't be difficult. Go fuck yourself, I said, and I surprised myself with how steady it came out. The man's eyes hardened. You can't outrun this, he said. Watch me, I said, and I ran. I sprinted past him toward the stairs, my shoes slapping concrete, my breath loud and wet. The hum chased me in my head like a hook. He didn't chase right away. That scared me more than if he had. I hit the stairwell and took steps 2 at a time. Halfway down, I heard it again. Knocking. Not from the wall. From inside the stairwell door below me. Top, top, top. My legs nearly gave out. I forced myself to keep going, heart hammering. At the bottom, the door to the street was propped open. Cold air hit my face like a slap. I burst out into daylight and kept moving, weaving through people like they were obstacles in a nightmare. I didn't look back until I reached a busy intersection. The man stood at the edge of the parking garage entrance, watching me, not running, like he knew time was on his side. He lifted his phone to his ear. My phone buzzed immediately. Unknown number. I didn't answer. A message popped up instead. Dry places won't save you. My hand shook. Another message. Water is in you. I swallowed hard and tasted metal. Then, open your mouth. I put the phone in my pocket like I could hide from it. I took the medication because my throat was starting to lock. I didn't trust it, but I also didn't trust my own body anymore. The pills made me feel heavy, like my muscles were wearing weights. My jaw loosened slightly. The urge to hum dulled, but the tone didn't disappear. It just got quieter, like it was waiting. I spent the next few days doing everything wrong. I drank only bottled water like that mattered. I avoided the harbor like it was a crime scene. I stayed inside with a dehumidifier running so hard the air felt like paper. I didn't sleep because when I closed my eyes, I saw the film guy's mouth without a tongue, that metal lattice fuse into meat like a horrible smile. I felt Klein's throat splitting like wet paper. And underneath all of it, that steady tone, patient as tide. On the 4th day, my neighbor knocked on my door. I opened a crack. He held up a package. This came for you, he said. It was a plain cardboard box. No return address. My stomach dropped. I didn't order anything, I said. Just take it, he grumbled. And whatever you're doing with the water at night, stop. Pipes are making weird noises. My skin went cold. I took the box and shut the door. I stared at it on my kitchen table for a full minute before I touched it. Then I opened it. Inside was a single object wrapped in plastic. A small handheld device, like a cheap field recorder. A sticky note was taped to it. The handwriting was neat, almost friendly. Play this near water. My throat tightened. I didn't want to. Every part of me screamed not to. But curiosity is dangerous, and I was already infected with it. I grabbed the device and walked to my bathroom because it was the closest water I could control. I turned on the faucet to a thin stream. The sound of it made my jaw ache. I hit play. At first, nothing. Then a low tone, barely audible, slid into the room. Not the carrier tone, something under it. A countertone, a shape that felt wrong in a different way. My skin prickled. My throat tried to hum, but but the medication dulled it. The bathroom mirror fogged, slightly, even though the water wasn't hot. My sink gurgled, then the drain tapped. Top, top, top. My breath caught. The sound on the device shifted, and in that shift, I felt something like relief. Not comfort, relief like pressure releasing, like a valve opening. The carrier tone in the pipes faltered. For a second, it lost its clean steadiness. Then it surged back, angry, stepped up hard enough to make my teeth ache. The device tone rose to meet it like an argument. Two signals in my bathroom, fighting through my plumbing. My mirror vibrated. I yanked the device off, hands shaking. The room went quiet except for running water. I shut the faucet. The hum stayed. But now it wasn't alone. There was that other shape under it, like a second presence had been introduced. My phone buzzed. A message. Who gave you that? I stared at the screen, blood cold. Another message. That is not ours. Not everything down there is ours. I understood now. The clean boots, people weren't the only players. They were just one set of hands trying to keep the surface stable. Something else had reached out to me through a cardboard box. Something that knew the rules of sound. Something that wanted me to play it near water. I felt like I was standing between two tides, about to get pulled apart. That night, the knocking started again. Not on my pipes, not on my walls, on my door. 3 taps. Top, top, top. I froze in bed, heart hammering. The taps came again, same tempo. I didn't move. They came a third time. Then, from the other side of the door, a hum. Low, steady, human throat hum. My mouth filled with saliva. My jaw ached. My throat tried to answer back. I clamped my hands over my mouth and bit my tongue hard enough to taste blood because the man had been right about one thing. If you don't give a mouth, it looks for another. The hum outside shifted, stepped up one note like it was testing. My phone buzzed again. A message. Let US in. Another. You are leaking. I squeezed my eyes shut. The hum outside stopped. Then the tapping started again, slower. Top, top, top. Like someone was being patient. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I opened my door. The hallway was empty. The carpet looked damp in front of my unit, like someone had stood there dripping. On the doormat was a single wet footprint. Barefoot. I stared at it until my vision blurred. Then I heard the sink gurgle behind me. I turned. The bathroom door was open. The faucet was running. A thin, steady stream. I hadn't turned it on. I walked toward it like a person walking toward a bad decision because there's nowhere else to go. In the sink basin, the drain water swirled, dark and glossy, like oil. And in that dark water, for half a second, I saw a reflection that wasn't mine. Not a face, more like an impression. A suggestion of something pale and smooth behind the water's surface, like the water was a window. Then it was gone, and the drain gurgled like normal plumbing. I turned the faucet off with shaking hands. The hum under the building's sound stepped up. My throat vibrated. I realized something with horrible clarity. It wasn't waiting for me to go to the ocean anymore. It had brought the ocean to me. I packed a bag that morning. Not carefully, not organized. I shoved clothes, medication, my notebook, my laptop, and that mysterious device into a duffel like I was fleeing a fire. I got in my car and drove inland until the air dried and the smell of salt faded. I rented a cheap room in a motel near a highway where the only water nearby was a vending machine bottle. The first night, I almost felt okay. No pipeum, no ocean smell, no harbor noise. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to cars hiss past on wet asphalt even though it wasn't raining. Then I heard it. A low tone under the motel's air conditioner. Quiet, patient. My jaw ached. My throat tightened. I pressed my tongue to the roof of my mouth, trying to hold the sound in. The hum stepped up one note. And from somewhere outside the motel, far away but clear in the dead night air, I heard a train horn. Long low. A mournful note that should have been comforting because it was human and mechanical. Instead, my throat tried to match it, like my body was desperate to join any steady tone it could find. Water is in you. I sat up, shaking, and understood the last piece of the trap. It wasn't about the ocean. The ocean was just where it started. It was about bodies that carry water, blood that carries sound, flesh that can be tuned. Whales were just the biggest mouths. But any mouth could do. One mouth is enough. I've been running from open water ever since. I don't live near the coast anymore. I don't go to lakes. I don't stand on bridges. I don't take baths. I drink bottled water and still swear I taste metal sometimes. And still, on certain nights when the world is quiet enough, I hear a low tone under everything. Not loud, not obvious, just there, like a neighbor's TV through a wall. Sometimes it comes with tapping. Top, top, top. Always that tempo. When it happens, my jaw aches and my tongue presses to the roof of my mouth like it wants to sing back. I bite it until I taste blood. I don't go near water at night. Not because I'm scared of drowning, because I'm scared that one day I'll stop biting. I'll open my mouth. I'll answer without thinking. And the boundary will move again, closer, tighter, because it won't need whales anymore. It'll have me.